Good morning. I'd like to make this video for my Catholic friends. And as you know, in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he asked them, he said, "Who do people say that I am?" And one disciple said one thing, and one said another. And Peter, who was the spokesman for the disciples, typically piped up, and he's the one that piped up, and he said, "You're Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus said, "You're right, Peter. Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah. Flesh and blood hasn't revealed this to you, but my Father which is in heaven," which means, Peter, you didn't figure this out yourself. My Father revealed it to you. And then he said to Peter, he said, "You're Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." Now, if you're Catholic, you believe that Peter was the first pope. And the purpose of this video is not to debate that one way or another, but to acknowledge that Peter was absolutely the leader of the early church. And my challenge to you would be to read what Peter said in the Bible. Peter in Acts chapter 1 through 15 was the leader of the early church. So take a Bible and read what Peter said in those chapters. And then also I would challenge you to read what Peter said in 1st and 2nd Peter. And I think that two things come out from this message from Peter. Peter in Acts chapter 10 met a man named Cornelius. And Cornelius fell down to worship Peter. And Peter said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, stand up. I myself am also a man." So one of the first things Peter said was, whatever you do, don't worship me. Worship somebody else, but don't worship me. And that wasn't the only time Peter said that. In Acts chapter 3, Peter and John were going to the temple to pray, and they met a lame man there who couldn't walk. And Peter and John looked at him, and Peter was the spokesperson, and Peter said, "Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have I'll give you. In the name of Jesus of Nazareth, rise up and walk." And a miracle happened right there. That man stood up and walked. And the people around were amazed, and they looked at Peter and John like they were special. And Peter said, "What are you looking at? Don't worship us as if we were something special. In the name of Jesus of Nazareth," that man rose up and walked. And so the second thing we learn from Peter, Peter consistently says, "Don't worship me." But the second thing he always says is, "Worship the risen Christ." Peter in Acts chapter 4, verse 12 said, "Neither is there salvation in any other, but there is none other name given among men whereby we must be saved." And Peter always said, "Don't worship me, but worship the living Jesus." And what I would say to you is this: the message from Peter to you and me today is, worship the risen Christ. Neither is there salvation in any other. And that matches what Jesus himself said. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me." Don't go through anybody else except Jesus, for he is the only way of salvation. And that's our message today from Peter. Thank you for listening.